You know where you are? You're in the jungle, baby. You're gonna die. In the jungle. Welcome to the jungle.
Hello, this is Jungleman, aka Daniel Cates for cardrunners.com, and today I'm going to be going over a session I played a while ago versus two different players, pitplaya420 and zangbazan24. I'm going to call zangbazan just Zang for the sake of the video and for the sake of my sanity. Both these guys are actually playing totally different from each other, and neither of them are playing standard styles, so there will be a lot of interesting spots in this video, and we'll get to see how my play varies a little bit depending on who I'm playing against. Pitplaya, I'm playing on 3 tables, and Pitplaya is playing, looking at these stats, he's playing really, really unique. He's playing almost 100% of small blinds. Excuse me. Almost 70% of big blinds, which is obviously spewy, and 3-betting 52%. Yeah, that's about how crazy it was. Folding to 3-bets 43%, so he's going to have a range for calling 3-bets about as wide as, let's see, if his range is totally logical, which it never is, it's going to be, so his calling range is 57%. About that wide, so he's going to have it as wide as 10-4 suited, Jack-3 suited, King-3 offsuit, all this nonsense. So that should give us an idea of how crazy he's playing. In addition to that, he's check folding the flop 4%. That is absurd, especially given the fact that he's playing this percent in the big blind. Check raising 42%. Well, this is over a small sample, but still, obviously, is going absolutely bananas. In fact, sample can't be that small if his check fold to flop bet is 4%. It has to be, well, a multiple of let's see, it has to be at least a multiple of 25. So so at the very best case scenario, he's check folded the flop once out of 25 times, and then check raised like another what is that 25. Maybe I made a mistake somewhere. Anyways, he's check raising a ton. Is c-betting 65%, double barreling 58%. First of all, these two numbers just basically imply, if this is what his true barrel frequency is, that he's bluffing all the time. Ditto river c-bet. I mean, he's just going crazy. This is just a guy that he's the extreme where you just can't fold versus a guy like this because he's clearly bluffing all over the place. He's just bananas. He's a wild goose on the loose. Zhang, on the other hand, contrast, is playing only half his buttons, or 60% of his buttons, 56% of the big blind. He's folding 3-bets 37%. That's standard given the fact that, well, he's also playing really wide versus a 3-bet, but it's not nearly as wide as Pitplaya because he's playing much less hands in the small blind, so his range is going to be 37% of 61%. His check fold versus, well, his c-bet is only 41%, even though his turn c-bet is really high at 70%, so he's probably bluffing on the turn a little bit. His check fold to flop is pretty standard, 41%. His check raise is pretty standard, also 10%, although I've seen him slow play monsters, especially when he's got the board killed on like really dry boards pretty consistently. There's probably some bluffs in that range as well, but in general we're not going to be looking to hero call him as much. Although at this point in the match I was starting to get the feeling that, based on all the big pots I played with Zhang, it seemed like he was following through on the river way more often than he normally would way more often than he would if he was never bluffing. So I was starting to get the feeling that he was bluffing me in some spots. There's some incongruency between his bet sizing also, as I'll go over later in a certain spot. I definitely was getting the feeling that he was bluffing. Pitplayer, there's no chance of me folding to him at any point in time. This is actually a good pretty convenient time to start the video or start recording, because in the earlier, well, before as you can see, we've been playing for a while, and before this video started, I was kind of getting owned and just running really terribly overall. I mean, Zangbane was just god moding me, and then this guy was kind of god moding me. I was maybe making mistakes by just not folding to him. I'm surprised I folded there. I should have called there with Queen 9. He's playing so many buttons that that Queen 9 is just for sure a call because I mean, it just plays so well against 100%, or plays well enough against 100% that it's sure call. It's not, if it's minus EV, it's not minus EV enough that calling is incorrect. Here about the turn, I guess I was assuming that he wouldn't really have a 10 very often, and he'd see bet most of his air. I guess I must have just thought that this was the best way to get value out of a bunch of hands that I'd otherwise just be forced to not get much value on by checking through by the river, and also to charge him for some equity. And I wonder if I was going to check fold or check call the river. If I was going to check call, that must have implied that I was also trying to get value from 8-6 or something like that, that he just checks the flop with. He's not c-betting that much, although 65 is definitely a lot, so there's some chance that he has some bluffs by the turn. If he's c-betting like 85% comparison, he's almost never going to have a bluff by the turn. He's almost always going to have ace high or whatever on the turn. Then the only 10 he's really going to have is maybe king 10 or ace 10 in his range, so then c-betting ace 3 on the turn for value makes a ton more sense. Yeah, yeah, if he's c-betting that much because he just isn't going to have air. Otherwise, it might make if he's c-betting like 40% contrast, it might make more sense to trap because he's just not going to have. It's much more likely he has a bluff that can bet on the turn that I can extract value from by trapping the turn. Anyways, I guess I must have just thought that there's more value in betting than checking. Anyways, let's continue. I'd hope that after seeing that hand, I'd decide to check raise Zhang on the turn more often, dinner for value, etc., because he's betting pretty thin on the turn. He's also not c-betting very much, so he's also going to have bluffs on the turn, so it makes sense to check raise. With King 9, he 4-bet pre-flop, and I check called flop. I guess I was just thinking that I didn't really want to get it in versus like ace queen or something. Another thing about pit players forwarding way too much for him to never be bluffing, so I wasn't going to give his 4-bets any credit at all. I was going to show over them late. And then on the flop, I think that I was just thinking, well, I keep in some bluffs if for some reason he decides to bluff diamonds on the turn, and also by check calling, that is, by check calling I keep in his bluffs, and also it's pretty much a disaster to get it in versus ace king or whatever this deep. That being said, I might get it in versus like queen 2 of diamonds or something like that that I've kind of killed, so check raising wouldn't exactly be horrible for that reason. And also, I mean, he's not gonna have ace king that often. He's never gonna have ace queen, so the only real hand that I get it in bad versus is ace king. So that being said, check raise would probably be fine actually. If he doesn't barrel total blanks, then check calling is absolutely reasonable as well. As we see, he doesn't barrel this card, which surprises me because he's actually barreling a ton of the time, and I have to wonder what cards is he actually barreling if he's barreling this often. I'm gonna guess that is also, given what I've seen, he's not bluffing the right cards in some spots, and also he is betting like really marginal equity in a lot of spots. And on the river, I just don't think he's gonna fold anything better. This is a guy that would definitely, if he had like queen 2 or just something really weak, hero call a river or something like that, just thinking of a busted draw. So definitely don't want to try to bluff him off better than king high there. Maybe I could value bet 5-2 suited. I wasn't going anywhere. I didn't care what the river was. I was just clicking call. If it was a 2, I was clicking call maybe. Well, 2 might be one of the only cards I fold. Well, maybe not even that actually. I might even call there. If it was like, I can't even think of a card I'd fold. Maybe a 9. It's just not a spot I was looking to fold in. Pit play is crazy. I mean, with these stats, he just has to be bluffing all the time, so I wasn't looking to fold. He didn't follow through, fortunately for me, because if he did, that would imply that he had it, considering it didn't follow through with basically a bluff. Here, I don't really know why I clicked a